I didn't realize I'd joined a cult until I found the chair bolted to the basement floor. Up until that moment, I thought I'd just found a support group in Asheville. People who listened, who cared, who said all the right things. But the moment they told me the one rule they never wrote down, I understood something terrifying. Once you're in, you don't leave. I didn't think I was the kind of person who could fall for a cult. That was always something that happened to other people. People who were lonely, desperate, uneducated, or looking for a miracle. I told myself I was too practical for that. Too skeptical. I was wrong. And the worst part is, I didn't even realize what I'd joined until the day I found the basement. It started in Asheville, North Carolina, in a place that smelled like eucalyptus and burnt coffee. If you've ever been there, you know what I mean. Asheville has this vibe where everyone looks like they's on a spiritual journey, even if they're just grabbing groceries. I was 23, fresh out of a messy breakup, working a boring admin job downtown. I had friends, technically, but they were busy building real lives, grad school, engagement rings, mortgages. I was just floating. That's when Mara O'Connell approached me at Pritchard Park. She wasn't handing out pamphlets or yelling about the end of the world. She didn't look like a preacher or a salesperson. She looked like someone who belonged in Asheville. Linen dress, thrift store jewelry, calm smile that made you feel like you were already safe. "Hey," she said, like we already knew each other. "Can I ask you something?" Normally, I would have kept walking, but she asked it so gently. "What do you do when you feel like your life is happening to you instead of for you?" I actually laughed because it hit a little too close. "I guess I just keep going," I said. Mara nodded like that was the saddest answer she'd ever heard. "My friends and I meet on Thursdays," she told me. "We talk about that feeling. We try to break out of it." I asked what the group was called. She paused, like the name mattered. "The Lantern House." She didn't ask for money. She didn't pressure me. She just handed me a little card with an address and a time. Before she walked away, she added, "No obligation, but I think you'd fit." I went home that night and stared at the card for a long time. Lantern House, Thursday, 7 p.m., Montford neighborhood. I told myself it was just a discussion group, like a book club but for feelings. So I went. The house was a big old place tucked behind trees. The kind of historic Asheville home that looks charming until you notice how the shadows collect around it. Inside, it felt warm and intimate. Candles, soft music, a bunch of people in socks, smiling like they were all in on a secret. Mara introduced me to a man named Elliot Ward. Elliot was maybe mid-30s, with a face that looked like it belonged on a motivational podcast cover. Clean haircut, kind eyes, voice low and confident. He shook my hand and said, "I'm glad you found us." Like it was inevitable. They sat in a circle in the living room, and the meeting started with something they called the check-in. Each person shared one thing they were ashamed of and one thing they wanted. It was raw, but not in a dramatic way. More like everyone had done this so many times the embarrassment had worn off. When it was my turn, I froze. Mara gave me a reassuring look. So I told the truth. I said I felt like I didn't matter to anyone. Like I could disappear and my life wouldn't change anybody's day. When I finished, nobody rushed to comfort me. Nobody said, "Oh honey, don't say that." Instead, Elliot nodded slowly and said, "Thank you, that's a real lantern moment." That phrase, lantern moment, got repeated a lot. They ended the session with a simple rule: what's said in the house stays in the house. It felt normal, confidentiality, respect. I walked out of there lighter than I'd felt in months. And that's the hook, I think. That first hit of being seen. The next week I came back. Then I came back again. And little by little, the lantern house started replacing my real life. I stopped going out with my coworkers after work. I stopped calling my mom as often. I started spending Thursdays at the house, then Sundays too, because Sundays were for integration. They didn't tell me to cut people off, not directly. They just kept hinting that outsiders wouldn't understand. They called outsiders dim rooms, and they called each other keepers. Mara explained it like it was cute. A keeper is someone who helps you stay lit, she said. After about a month, Elliot invited me to stay after a Thursday meeting. Not everyone gets asked, he told me. My stomach actually flipped, like I'd been chosen for something important. He led me into the dining room where 3 people sat waiting. Mara, a guy named Jackson Price, and a woman named Danielle Holloway. There was a notebook on the table. Elliot sat down and said, "We want to offer you a deeper step." He opened the notebook. It was filled with names and dates. "Most groups talk about healing," he said. "We practice it, but healing takes honesty, and honesty takes leverage." That word, leverage, made my skin tighten. Elliot noticed, smiled softly, and said, "Not control, commitment." Then he asked me to write something down. "Something you'd be ashamed if the world knew," he said. "Something that proves you take this seriously." I laughed awkwardly. "I don't know," I said. "Like what, a secret?" Danielle leaned forward. "Something that could ruin you, or change how people see you." My mouth went dry. I should have left, but Mara was watching me with that calm smile, and I didn't want to be the only person who couldn't handle it. So I wrote something down. It wasn't even that extreme, just something personal I never wanted my family reading. A confession from my worst night after my breakup. Something ugly. Elliot took the paper and folded it carefully. "Good," he said. "Now you're a keeper." After that, everything shifted. Suddenly, there were levels. There were private meetings for keepers. Extra responsibilities? Rules that weren't mentioned to the newcomers. We had to respond to texts within 10 minutes. To stay present. We had to report dim room behavior in other members. Like if someone skipped a meeting, drank too much, questioned Elliot. And then, one night, Elliot introduced a new rule. "One rule," he said, voice gentle. "And it's the only one that matters." Everyone leaned in. He said, "We don't write it down." The keepers laughed, like it was an inside joke. I smiled too, even though I didn't understand. After the meeting, Mara walked me to my car. I asked her what the rule was. She didn't answer right away. Then she said, "You'll know when you need to know." That was the first time I felt fear in Lantern House. Not panic, not terror, just the awareness that something had teeth. The next month, I started noticing gaps. People would talk about members I'd met, then suddenly act like those members never existed. One week, I asked about Jackson Price because he wasn't at meetings anymore. Danielle gave me a sharp look and said, "Jackson found his dim room." Like he'd just moved away. But I'd seen Jackson the week before. He hadn't said anything about leaving. Then, one Sunday afternoon, Mara texted me, "Can you come early? Elliot needs help downstairs." I didn't even know there was a downstairs. The house had always felt sealed. Like everything happened above ground. I got there around 5, let myself in, and called out. Mara's voice came from the back hall. "Down here." I followed her through a door I'd never seen open before, past the kitchen, past a storage closet, into a narrow stairwell. The air changed immediately, cooler, damp, like the house had been holding its breath. At the bottom of the stairs was a basement room lit by a single hanging bulb. And in that room, there was a chair, a heavy chair bolted into the concrete. There were scuff marks on the floor around it, like something had been dragged. My brain tried to label it. Old furniture, weird art project, renovation thing. Anything except what it clearly was. Mara stepped in front of me, her face serious. "This is the part outsiders wouldn't understand," she said. I whispered, "What is this?" She answered softly, like she was comforting a child. "This is where the lantern stays lit." Then Elliot walked in behind her. He didn't smile. He looked at me like he was measuring something. "Mara said you've been restless," he said. No, I lied immediately. "I'm fine." Elliot's eyes flicked to the chair. "No one is fine," he said. "That's the point." My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. He stepped closer and lowered his voice. "This isn't a punishment room," he said. "It's a clarity room." Mara nodded. Danielle appeared at the bottom of the stairs behind Elliot, blocking the only way back up. I realized then that this was planned. That text wasn't a request. It was an appointment. I backed up instinctively, but there was nowhere to go. Elliot said, "You've been asking questions." "I was just curious," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I didn't mean anything by it." "Curiosity. That was always the crime in places like this." Elliot sighed, almost disappointed. "You still think you're here for comfort," he said. "You think this is a support group. That's dim room thinking." My mouth felt numb. "What do you want?" I asked. Elliot leaned in slightly. "I want you to remember the rule," he said. And then he said it. Finally. The one rule they never put in writing. "Once you're a keeper, you don't leave." The basement went quiet. Even the bulb seemed to buzz louder. I looked at Mara, expecting something, anything, some flicker of hesitation, but her eyes were steady, almost loving, like she thought this was protection. Elliot said, "Sit down, we're going to talk." I did the only thing I could think of. I ran. It wasn't graceful. I shoved past Mara hard enough that she stumbled. Danielle grabbed for my arm and missed, fingers catching my sleeve for half a second. I took the stairs two at a time, slammed the door behind me, and sprinted through the kitchen like the house was on fire. I didn't stop until I was in my car, locking the doors with shaking hands. Mara was on the porch, calling my name like she was trying to stop me from stepping into traffic. Elliot didn't follow. He didn't have to, because the moment I pulled out of the driveway, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "We're proud of what you wrote. Your mother would be proud too." My blood turned cold. I didn't tell them where my mother lived. I didn't tell them her name. But I had written it down in my intake form weeks ago, like it was harmless. I drove straight to the Asheville Police Department on Cox Avenue. I told the desk officer everything: Lantern House, Elliot, the basement chair, the leverage. He listened politely, but his eyes had that look people get when they're deciding how much they believe you. He asked for the address. I gave it. He asked if anyone hurt me. I said no, not yet. He asked if I had proof. I showed him Mara's text. I showed him the unknown number. I showed him the paper trail of donations I'd made to Lantern House. Because yes, at some point, they started asking for money too. For the house, for the work. The officer said they'd look into it. I sat in my car afterward for an hour, hands locked around the steering wheel, waiting for the relief to come. It didn't, because a part of me knew By the time anyone looked into it, Elliot would have already moved the lantern. 2 days later, I drove past the house in Montford. The yard was empty. No candles, no cars. The windows were dark. A "For Rent" sign was posted out front, like the place had been waiting for a new story. I called Mara's number. Disconnected. I searched Elliot Ward. Nothing useful. I searched Lantern House Asheville. Nothing. Like it never existed. I moved out of Asheville that month. I told my job I had family issues. I packed everything I owned into my car and drove to Knoxville, Tennessee, where my cousin let me crash on her couch. For a while, I convinced myself it was over. Then, about 6 months later, a plain envelope showed up in my cousin's mailbox. No return address. Inside was a single folded piece of paper, my handwriting. The confession I'd written in that notebook. And under it, in neat printed letters, "Dim rooms get dark." I still don't know where Elliot went, but sometimes when I'm out somewhere crowded, like a coffee shop or a park, I'll feel someone watching me with that same calm certainty. And I'll remember how warm the Lantern House felt at first, how safe, how chosen. And I'll wonder how many other people are still sitting in circles somewhere, telling their secrets out loud, not realizing they're handing someone the matches. The group didn't call itself a cult. It called itself a wellness collective in Boulder, Colorado. They said they could heal anxiety, burnout, and trauma, not with therapy, but with energetic accountability. And the moment I questioned them, they decided I was toxic and needed to be removed. I joined the group because I was tired of being tired. That's always how it starts, I think. Not desperation, just exhaustion. The kind that makes you willing to listen when someone tells you the problem isn't your job, your relationships, or your mental health. It's your energy. In my case, it started in Boulder, Colorado, in late 2021. I'd moved there during the pandemic, chasing fresh air and a reset that never really came. I worked remotely, barely knew anyone, and spent most nights doom scrolling or staring at my ceiling. One night, while scrolling Instagram, I saw a post that stopped me. It was a pale green graphic with clean fonts and calming words. "You're not broken. You're misaligned." The account was called ClearPath Collective. Their bio said they were a holistic wellness community based in Boulder, focused on radical self-honesty, energetic accountability, and personal evolution. Normally, I would have kept scrolling, but that phrase, energetic accountability, stuck in my head. I clicked. The posts were testimonials. People smiling in hiking photos, talking about how ClearPath saved their lives, freed them from toxic cycles, and showed them who they really were. One video featured a woman named Sierra Bloom, the founder. She sat cross-legged on a wooden floor, sunlight pouring in behind her, speaking softly. "If you keep attracting pain," she said, "it's because part of you still believes you deserve it." I didn't like that, but I also didn't look away. I signed up for a free Zoom intro session that same night. The session was full, about 40 people, all muted, cameras on. Everyone looked like they belonged in Boulder. Plants, crystals, neutral colors, soft lighting. Sierra spoke for most of it. She talked about how society rewards victim thinking, how people hide behind diagnoses and labels instead of taking responsibility for their internal state. She never said anxiety wasn't real. She said anxiety was a choice you hadn't yet unlearned. At the end, she smiled gently and said, "If any of this triggered you, that's okay. Resistance means we're close to truth." That line should have been a red flag. Instead, it felt like a challenge. A week later, I joined ClearPath officially. It cost $180 a month, which they framed as an energetic investment. If you don't invest, Sierra said, your subconscious won't commit. At first, it really did feel helpful. There were weekly group calls, journaling prompts, and something called mirroring sessions, where members reflected each other's behavior without sugarcoating. They praised honesty, brutal honesty. During my first mirroring session, a guy named Evan Richter told me, "You talk like someone who's waiting to be disappointed." It stung, but everyone nodded like he'd said something profound. And when Sierra smiled and said, "That awareness is a breakthrough," I felt weirdly proud. Over time, the language changed. People stopped saying stress and started saying density. Instead of bad day, it was low-frequency spiral. Instead of I'm upset, it was I noticed I'm choosing resentment. They discouraged therapy, not openly, just subtly. Traditional therapy keeps you stuck in story, Sierra said during one call. We focus on truth. If someone mentioned a therapist, the group would gently suggest they were outsourcing authority. Slowly, ClearPath became the lens through which I viewed everything. If my mom upset me, it was because my boundaries were energetic, not physical. If work overwhelmed me, it was because I hadn't claimed my power. And if I doubted ClearPath, that was my ego panicking. They had a phrase for it: ego death resistance. The deeper I got, the less outside input mattered. ClearPath had its own Slack channel, its own vocabulary, its own heroes and villains. Outsiders were called unawakened. Former members were called regressed. Nobody ever said left, they said collapsed. The first time someone disappeared, I didn't question it. Her name was Jenna Morales. She was active, vocal, always talking about how ClearPath helped her leave a bad marriage. One week, she posted constantly. The next week, her name vanished from Slack. When someone asked about her on a group call, Sierra's tone shifted, just slightly. Jenna chose not to take accountability for the impact she was having, she said calmly. We wish her healing. No one followed up. No one ever said her name again. That became a pattern. People didn't argue in ClearPath, they self-corrected. If you questioned Sierra, the group would gently suggest you examine why her words were triggering you. And if you pushed back, they scheduled a clarity session. My clarity session happened after I missed 2 calls in 1 week. Work had been brutal. I was exhausted. I logged back into Slack and saw a private message from Sierra herself. I'm noticing some withdrawal. Can we talk? We met on Zoom. She didn't accuse me of anything. She didn't raise her voice. She just asked questions. Do you feel committed to your evolution? Are you choosing comfort over growth? Are you aware of how your inconsistency affects the group field? By the end, I was apologizing for being tired, for missing calls, for letting the group down. Sierra nodded slowly. Thank you for owning that, she said. Some people can't. After that, the pressure increased. I was encouraged to upgrade to ClearPath Inner Circle, a smaller group that met in person. The retreat was held outside Nederland, up in the mountains. No phones allowed, no watches, no alcohol, no outside contact. Isolation accelerates clarity, Sierra said. The first night, we sat in a circle in a rented lodge while Sierra explained the core principle of ClearPath. There are 2 kinds of people, she said. Those who expand and those who drain. She looked around the circle. If you're here, she said, it's because you're capable of expansion. Something about the way she said it made my chest tighten. The next day, we did an exercise called impact mapping. One by one, people sat in the center while the group explained how that person negatively affected them. Not constructively, bluntly. You dominate space. You manipulate with sadness. You weaponize vulnerability. When it was my turn, I felt physically sick. Evan went first. You drain energy when you doubt, he said. It makes people feel unsafe. Others piled on. You make jokes to avoid responsibility. You seek reassurance instead of truth. Sierra watched silently. When it was over, she finally spoke. "This is hard," she said, "but now you know." I cried that night in my room, convinced I was fundamentally broken. The next morning, Sierra hugged me. "You're brave," she whispered. "Most people would have collapsed." That word again. Collapsed. Things escalated after the retreat. Inner circle. Members were expected to cut off toxic connections. They never gave a list. You were supposed to feel it. I stopped calling my mom. I distanced myself from friends who questioned ClearPath. When my best friend Lena told me she was worried, I repeated Sierra's words without realizing it. "She's projecting her fear," I said. That night, Sierra messaged me. "I noticed your vibration shifted today. What happened?" I told her about Lena. Sierra replied almost immediately. "Some people will sabotage your growth to protect their own stagnation." A week later, Lena stopped texting me, and I let her. The breaking point came during a group call in early 2023. Someone brought up boundaries. They asked if it was healthy to constantly monitor each other's behavior. There was a pause. Then Sierra smiled. "Boundaries are a tool for people who don't trust themselves," she said. "At ClearPath, transparency replaces boundaries." My stomach dropped. That night, I Googled ClearPath for the first time in months. I found a small Reddit thread, 3 posts, all from former members. One said, "They convinced me my depression was moral failure." Another said, "Leaving felt like escaping an abusive relationship." The third stopped me cold. If you're reading this and you're still inside, they're already watching how you react. My phone buzzed. A Slack message from Sierra. "I'm sensing distance. Are you in integrity right now?" That was it. I didn't respond. I logged out. I blocked the Slack channel. I blocked Sierra, and I waited. For anger, for threats, for guilt messages. Instead, silence. For 3 days. On the 4th day, an email arrived. Subject line, final reflection. It was from ClearPath's admin account. It said I had chosen regression over responsibility, that my energy was no longer aligned with the group, and that for the safety of the collective, I was no longer welcome. At the bottom, one last line. "Please refrain from contacting current members." I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt hollow. For weeks, I second-guessed myself. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was toxic. It took months and an actual therapist to undo the damage. To relearn that exhaustion isn't failure, that doubt isn't sabotage, that communities that punish questions aren't healing spaces. They're just cults with better branding. ClearPath Collective doesn't exist anymore. Their Instagram is gone. Their website redirects to a broken link. But sometimes when I'm scrolling late at night, I'll see a familiar phrase in a wellness post. If this triggers you, you're close to truth. And I'll close the app immediately, because I've learned something important. Any group that decides who you're allowed to be will eventually decide who you're allowed to disappear. I didn't realize my boarding school had a cult until I broke one of its rules. Not the written rules, the ones in the handbook. The real rules. The ones everyone followed without ever saying out loud. and the ones you were punished for questioning. I was 16 when my parents sent me to St. Andrew's Preparatory School in New Hampshire just outside Concord. On paper, it was a dream school, historic campus, Ivy League placement rates, small class sizes, character-focused education. In reality, it was where difficult kids were sent to be fixed. I wasn't violent or anything like that, I just didn't listen well. I talked back, I questioned teachers. I didn't respect authority just because it existed. My parents thought structure would straighten me out. They had no idea what kind of structure St. Andrews really offered. From the first day, something felt off. Not scary, not obvious, just controlled. The students walked in neat clusters, always aware of who was watching. Conversations stopped when certain people passed by. Smiles appeared and disappeared on cue. My roommate, Caleb Morrison, was the first person to explain it to me, without actually explaining anything. "Rule number 1, he said while unpacking. "Don't stand out." I laughed. Kind of hard at a prep school. He didn't smile. "You'll see." The school divided students into houses, like a bad Harry Potter knockoff. Mine was Hawthorne House, overseen by a faculty advisor named Mr. Ellis. Mr. Ellis was young for a teacher, early 30s, calm voice, always smiling. During our first house meeting, he said something that stuck with me. "At St. Andrews," he said, "we don't punish, we correct." Everyone nodded like they'd heard it 100 times. The correction system was called reflection. Reflection wasn't detention, it wasn't suspension, it was worse. If you broke a rule or made a teacher uncomfortable, you were sent to reflection. That meant being removed from regular classes and placed in a small group with a faculty mentor to work on your mindset. They told parents it was therapeutic. They told students it was necessary. They told everyone it was temporary. The first time I heard about reflection, it was about a kid named Ethan Brooks. Ethan was loud, smart, funny, the kind of kid who made class bearable. One week he was there, the next week his desk was empty. When I asked where he went, Caleb shook his head slightly. "Don't ask that," he whispered. "Why not?" "Because that's how you end up there too." At first, I thought it was just strict discipline. Then I noticed patterns. Students who questioned teachers disappeared. Students who complained about food, schedules, or rules disappeared. Students who said they missed home too much disappeared. They came back quieter, thinner, different. They spoke in careful sentences, like every word had to be approved by someone else before it left their mouth. They thanked teachers excessively. They apologized for things that weren't their fault. They smiled more, but their eyes never matched. One night, after lights out, I asked Caleb what reflection actually was. He hesitated. Then he said, "It's where they teach you how to be grateful." That sounded harmless. It wasn't. My turn came in October. I got into an argument with my history teacher, Mrs. Langley, over a graded essay. I thought she'd misread my argument. I said so, politely but firmly. The next morning, there was a note in my mailbox. Report to reflection. No explanation, no appeal. Reflection took place in an old carriage house on the edge of campus. The building looked quaint from the outside. Inside, it felt like a different school entirely. The walls were bare, no clocks, no posters, just rows of chairs and a long table at the front. There were 6 of us. A woman named Dr. Monroe ran the sessions. She spoke slowly, deliberately, like every word was chosen to land exactly where she wanted it. "Reflection isn't punishment," she said on day 1. "It's alignment." We started each session by confessing what brought us there, not what we did, why we did it. When it was my turn, I said I questioned authority because I didn't believe authority was automatically right. Dr. Monroe smiled. "That's an ego response," she said. "Ego resists harmony." Over the next few days, we were encouraged to critique each other. If someone expressed frustration, the group pointed out their defensiveness. If someone cried, we discussed their emotional manipulation. If someone stayed quiet, they were accused of withholding. There was no correct response, only less incorrect ones. Sleep became hard. Reflection students had different schedules. Earlier wake-ups, later bedtimes. No free periods. No contact with non-reflection students. No outside contamination, Dr. Monroe called it. By the end of the first week, I started doubting my own memories. When I thought about the argument with Mrs. Langley, it didn't feel justified anymore. It felt shameful, like I disrupted something sacred. On the 8th day, Mr. Ellis visited. He sat across from me, hands folded, smiling gently. "We're proud of your progress," he said. I hadn't realized I was supposed to be progressing. "There's just one thing holding you back," he continued. "You still think you're here because of a misunderstanding." I didn't answer. "You're here because you were chosen," he said. "St. Andrews sees potential in you, but potential requires surrender." That word again, surrender. He leaned in slightly. "Do you want to stay in reflection longer, or do you want to rejoin your house?" I nodded quickly. "I want to rejoin." "Good," he said. "Then repeat after me." I hesitated. Dr. Monroe's voice cut in gently. "This is voluntary." It didn't feel voluntary. "I am responsible," Mr. Ellis said slowly, "for the energy I bring into this community." I repeated it. "I release my need to challenge," he said. I repeated it. "I choose harmony over ego," he said. My voice cracked, but I said it. The next day I was back in class. Everyone treated me differently, kinder, careful, like I was fragile. Caleb didn't ask questions. He just nodded when he saw me and said, "You're back." I should have been relieved. Instead, I felt hollow. Over the next months, I noticed how students corrected each other before teachers ever had to. Someone complained about food. Another student gently reminded them to practice gratitude. Someone looked homesick. A peer suggested reflection might help them process resistance. Teachers barely disciplined anyone anymore. They didn't need to. We did it ourselves. The school didn't call it a cult, they called it culture. The realization hit me when my younger sister came to visit in the spring. She looked around campus and whispered, "Why does everyone talk the same?" I didn't have an answer. That night, I wrote my parents a long email explaining everything. Reflection, confessions, isolation, pressure. I never sent it. I was afraid of what would happen if someone read it. I finished the year by keeping my head down, by saying the right things, by not standing out. I left St. Andrews the following summer and never went back. Years later, I looked it up. The school still exists. Different administrators, different programs, same language, same emphasis on alignment, character, and personal responsibility. I don't know if what I experienced would officially qualify as a cult, but I do know this. Any place that teaches you your thoughts are the problem. Any place that punishes questions while calling it care, and any place that convinces you silence is growth. Doesn't need robes or rituals to control you. It just needs rules no one dares to say out loud. The cult I joined didn't meet in a church or a house. It didn't ask for money up front. And it never called itself a cult. It lived entirely online. And by the time I realized it was controlling my real life, It already knew who I talked to, what I believed, and who I needed to cut off. I joined the group in March of 2020 from my bedroom in Tempe, Arizona during the first weeks of lockdown. Like a lot of people, I was alone for the first time in my life. No classes on campus, no parties, no casual conversations that didn't feel risky or forbidden. Everything suddenly happened through screens. So when someone messaged me on Twitter saying they liked a thread I'd posted about politics and anxiety, I responded. Their name was Ryan Keller. He was friendly, articulate, and angry in a way that felt familiar. We started DMing back and forth, then moved to Discord. That's where he invited me to the forum. He described it as a discussion server for people who think critically and aren't afraid of uncomfortable truths. That sounded reasonable. Smart, even. When I joined, there were maybe 200 members. Channels neatly organized, rules pinned at the top. No hate speech, no personal attacks, no bad faith arguments. It felt mature. The server owner was someone called Atlas. No real name, no profile photo, just a symbol, an eye inside a triangle. Atlas rarely spoke, but when they did, people listened. Their messages were always calm, rational, measured. When arguments broke out, Atlas would step in and say things like, "Let's return to facts," or "Emotion clouds judgment." Everyone respected them. At first, the forum was just debate, news articles, long discussions, links to studies, but slowly, the tone shifted. Certain opinions were praised more than others. Certain questions were gently discouraged. People who disagreed too much were accused of being reactionary or unserious. Ryan explained it to me one night in voice chat. "Not all opinions deserve equal space," he said. "That's how misinformation spreads." I agreed. That felt logical. The first rule I noticed, though no one ever called it a rule, was this. If Atlas disagreed with you, you were wrong. Not morally wrong, intellectually wrong. Atlas had a way of dismantling arguments without ever raising their voice. They'd ask questions that made you doubt your own position. Where did you learn that? Who benefits from you believing this? Have you examined your biases? If you pushed back, the room went quiet, not hostile, just cold. I watched people apologize publicly for having uninformed takes. They'd post long messages explaining how they'd reflected, learned, and grown. Atlas would respond with a simple, "Good, growth matters." That phrase became important. Growth mattered. If you weren't growing, you were stagnating. If you were stagnating, you were a liability. The forum started hosting education nights, voice chats where Atlas or trusted mods would explain concepts, media literacy, propaganda, power dynamics. They framed everything as protection. "The world is full of manipulation," Atlas said during one session. "If you're not careful, you'll absorb toxic narratives without realizing it." They warned us about family, about friends, about professors. "Most people don't think," Atlas said. "They repeat." I started seeing my offline life differently. When my roommate Daniel questioned something I repeated from the forum, I felt defensive. He's just not informed, I thought. When my sister sent me an article that contradicted something Atlas had said, I dismissed it immediately. She's not media literate. Without realizing it, I was outsourcing my thinking. The forum didn't tell me to cut people off. They just kept asking why I tolerated harmful influences. Ryan was the first to say it outright. "If someone consistently undermines your growth," he said, "why keep them close?" I didn't have an answer. The second unspoken rule became clear around summer. Private conversations weren't really private. People shared screenshots constantly. "Look what my friend said. My mom sent this. Roommate thinks this is normal. The group analyzed them together, labeled them, declared them problematic, brainwashed, or dangerous. If you didn't share enough, someone would ask why. Transparency builds trust, Atlas reminded us. So I started sharing more. Texts, DMs, screenshots. At first, I blurred names. Ahmad messaged me privately. Blurring reduces accountability, they said. We're not here to protect bad actors. So I stopped blurring. The third rule revealed itself the night Maya disappeared. Maya was smart, funny, sharp. She'd been active for months. One evening, she questioned Atlas during a discussion about censorship. She wasn't rude. She just asked if silencing certain ideas risked becoming dogmatic. The channel went silent. Atlas responded slowly. That's a familiar concern, they said, often raised by people who fear losing comfort. Maya replied, I don't think that's fair. That was it. The next morning, her name was gone. All her messages deleted. When someone asked where she went, Ahmad replied, Maya chose to disengage. No one asked again. I should have left then. Instead, I told myself she must have been unstable. That's how the forum framed it. People didn't leave, they failed. By fall, Atlas introduced something new. Inner Access, a smaller, invite-only channel for serious contributors. Ryan got in first. Then Ahmad messaged me. Atlas has noticed your consistency, they said. Would you like Inner Access? I felt honored. Inner Access had stricter rules. No lurking, no sarcasm, no dissent without evidence. Discussions went deeper and darker. Talk of necessary harm, of sacrificial relationships, of cutting dead weight. One night, Atlas said something that made my stomach tighten. Not everyone deserves access to you, they said. Some people exist to drain progress. Someone asked what to do about those people. Atlas replied, distance is a form of integrity. A few days later, Ryan messaged me. Hey, he said, I noticed you still talk to Daniel. My chest tightened. Yeah? I replied. He's openly dismissive of your growth, Ryan said. That's not neutral behavior. I stared at my screen. He's my roommate, I typed. So was I, Ryan said, to people I outgrew. That night, I avoided Daniel completely. The final straw came when my sister Emily called me crying. She said I'd changed, that I sounded scripted, that she missed me. I vented about it in Inner Access. Atlas responded personally. Family often resists transformation, they said, especially when it threatens their narrative. They suggested I limit contact. Just for clarity, they said. Something snapped. I imagined a future where every relationship was filtered through the forum, where every thought had to be approved, where disagreement meant disappearance. I logged off without saying anything. For 2 days, nothing happened. Then the messages started. Ryan asking if I was okay. Mods checking in. Atlas sending a single line. Silence communicates alignment or avoidance. Which is it? I didn't answer. On the third day, I tried to rejoin the server. I was banned. All channels gone, all messages erased. I searched my DMs. Blocked. Twitter blocked. It was like the forum had never existed. Except it had. Because a week later, Daniel asked me why people from an anonymous account were messaging him screenshots of things I'd said about him. My blood ran cold. They hadn't erased me, they'd punished me. I spent months untangling my thoughts, relearning how to disagree without fear, how to trust myself again. The forum still exists, by the way. Different name, same structure. Atlas is still there. Still teaching people how to think correctly. Still warning them about outsiders. And if you're ever in an online group that claims it's the only place telling the truth, if it tracks who you talk to, if it decides who's safe, and if leaving means you're suddenly the enemy, that's not a community. It's just a cult with Wi-Fi. I grew up believing every family had rules they never explained. Ours just had more of them. We didn't celebrate birthdays. We didn't say, "I love you." And we didn't ask questions because questions meant punishment. I didn't realize my family was a cult until the night my uncle told me I'd been chosen to replace him. I was born in Lander, Wyoming, the kind of town where everyone knows your name and pretends not to know your business. From the outside, my family looked normal enough. My dad worked construction. My mom stayed home. We lived in a modest house on the edge of town, close to open land and far from neighbors. People described us as private. Inside the house, we used a different word, disciplined. My parents followed something they called the way. They never wrote it down. They never named a leader. They never said where it came from. They just said it worked. The way governed everything. How we spoke, how we ate, how we slept, how we thought. Every morning started with silence. We weren't allowed to talk until breakfast was finished. My parents said words were powerful, and careless ones weakened the household. At meals, we ate the same portions, regardless of age or hunger. Leaving food was disrespect. Asking for more was greed. Emotions were treated like diseases. Crying meant weakness. Anger meant pride. Happiness meant distraction. If I laughed too loudly, my dad would look at me and say, "Check yourself." That phrase carried weight. It meant I was close to punishment. Punishments weren't violent, at least not in the way people imagine. They were instructional. If I broke a rule, I had to stand in the laundry room with the lights off and repeat sentences my mom chose. I am not special. I do not need comfort. I exist to contribute. Sometimes it lasted minutes, sometimes hours. My Uncle Raymond lived with us when I was growing up. He slept in the basement and rarely spoke unless spoken to. I was told he was correcting past errors. I didn't know what that meant. None of us asked. Raymond followed the way more strictly than anyone. He woke before dawn. He never missed silence. He never showed emotion. And everyone was afraid of him. Not because he was cruel, because he was devoted. When I was 12, I asked my mom why we didn't celebrate birthdays. She stared at me for a long moment, then said, "Birthdays teach people to expect recognition for existing." That night, I spent 4 hours in the laundry room. As I got older, I noticed something strange. People didn't leave our family. They disappeared. A cousin who stayed with us one summer was gone by fall. My parents said he'd chosen the outside. A neighbor once asked why she never saw my older sister anymore. My mom smiled and said she moved on. No forwarding address, no phone calls, no pictures, just gone. When I turned 17, the way intensified. My parents said I was approaching contribution age. That meant more responsibilities, less rest, more observation. They started testing me, leaving doors unlocked to see if I'd notice, interrupting silence to see if I'd correct them, saying false statements at dinner to see if I'd challenge them respectfully. Every response was evaluated. One night, after my parents went to bed, Raymond asked me to sit with him in the basement. That alone made my stomach knot. The basement smelled like dust and cold concrete. There was no furniture except 2 chairs and a bare bulb. Raymond sat down slowly and looked at me like he was measuring my weight. "You've done well," he said. That was the first praise I'd ever heard from him. I didn't know how to respond. He folded his hands. "Our family requires balance," he said. "The way survives because someone always carries it forward." I nodded, even though I didn't understand. Raymond leaned in. "I'm tired," he said, "and you're ready." The room felt smaller. "Ready for what?" I asked. "To stay," he said. "To guide, to correct." My chest tightened. "What about you?" I asked. Raymond smiled faintly. "I've served long enough." I didn't sleep that night. For the first time in my life, I imagined leaving. Not running away, leaving. The next morning, I tried to ask my parents what Raymond meant. My dad cut me off immediately. "Questions show resistance," he said. My mom added, "Resistance means you're not ready." That was the moment something inside me broke. Not loudly, quietly. I started planning. I hid cash from grocery money. I memorized the bus schedule in town. I paid attention when people talked about the world outside our house. The final test came a week later. Raymond asked me to discipline my younger brother. He'd laughed during silence. Raymond handed me the sentences and told me to supervise. I looked at my brother, 10 years old, scared, trying not to cry, and I realized this was how the way survived, not through force, through inheritance. That night, while everyone slept, I packed a backpack and walked out the front door. No note, no goodbye. I took a bus to Casper, then another to Fort Collins, Colorado, where I had a friend from middle school who barely remembered me. I slept on his couch. I cried for the first time in years. My family never came looking. No calls, no letters, no police reports. I think leaving broke the rules in a way they couldn't correct. Years later, I heard Raymond had died. Heart failure. My parents still live in that house. My brother left when he turned 18. My sister, I found her online once. She didn't respond to my message. Sometimes I wonder how many families like mine exist. Not loud, not dramatic, not televised, just quiet houses full of rules no one questions. Because the most effective cults don't recruit strangers. They raise their replacements. The rehab center promised to help me get my life back. They said it wasn't a cult, because cults trap people. But the strange thing was, no one there ever finished treatment. They either stayed forever or disappeared. I checked into Clear Haven Recovery in Sedona, Arizona, in the summer of 2018. Officially, I was there for alcohol. Unofficially, I was there because my life had stalled out completely. I was 27, newly divorced, and tired of waking up every day with the same regrets and the same promises I couldn't keep. Clear Haven didn't look like a rehab. It looked like a retreat. Red rock views, clean modern buildings, no bars on the windows, no locked doors. Their website talked about personal responsibility, ego dissolution, and truth-based recovery. They said they didn't believe in labels like addict. "You're not sick," the intake counselor Marissa Cole told me. "You're misaligned." That word again. Misaligned. It sounded hopeful. During intake, they took my phone for detox purposes, explained that contact with outsiders could interfere with progress, and told me treatment typically lasted 30 days. I believed them. The first week felt intense but productive. Group therapy every morning, journaling, guided hikes through the desert. But even early on, something felt rehearsed. Everyone spoke the same way, not slang, not tone, structure. People corrected themselves mid-sentence. I feel angry, sorry, resentful. I want to go home. Sorry, I'm resisting growth. When someone slipped up, a staff member would gently remind them. Let's use accurate language. The clinical director, Dr. Alan Pierce, ran most of the sessions. He was calm, articulate, and unsettlingly confident. "We don't treat symptoms here," he said during orientation. "We treat identity." That sounded deep at the time. It shouldn't have. By the second week, I noticed no one ever talked about leaving, not graduating, not finishing, just continuing. I asked a guy named Tom Alvarez how long he'd been there. 7 months, he said casually. I laughed. "Man, that's way longer than me." He didn't laugh back. "You don't really put a timeline on clarity," he said. That was the first time I heard that phrase. Clarity. Clear Haven's favorite word. The first rule I noticed, though it was never written down, was this: if you want to leave, it means you're not ready to leave. Anyone who mentioned going home was immediately flagged for resistance work. Extra sessions, extra scrutiny, extra attention. During one group, a woman named Rachel Kim said she missed her kids and wanted to talk about discharge planning. Dr. Pierce nodded sympathetically. Then he asked the group, "How do we hear avoidance showing up here?" People turned on her instantly. "You're bargaining. You're romanticizing the outside. You're prioritizing comfort over growth." Rachel cried and apologized. The next day, she wasn't in group. I asked Marissa where she went. She smiled gently. Rachel realized she wasn't ready for honesty. I never saw Rachel again. By week 3, Clear Haven introduced accountability partners. We were paired up and expected to report each other's behavior, sleep patterns, attitude, thoughts that didn't align with recovery. My partner was a guy named Derek Holloway. He took it seriously. Too seriously. If I seemed tired, he logged it. If I questioned something, he noted intellectualizing. If I joked about leaving, he flagged escape fantasy. One night, I told Derek I felt overwhelmed. The next morning, Dr. Pierce brought it up in group. "Someone shared concerns about your commitment," he said, looking directly at me. My stomach dropped. "We encourage radical transparency here," he continued. "Secrets fuel relapse." I felt exposed, watched. That night, I wrote in my journal that something felt wrong. The next day, Marissa asked to see my journal. I said no. Her smile faded for the first time. "Journals are community tools," she said. "Privacy creates distortion." That was the moment the word cult first crossed my mind. Things escalated quickly after that. I was assigned to intensive alignment, which meant no hikes, no free time, and constant supervision. Dr. Pierce told me calmly, "You're intelligent enough to rationalize dysfunction. That makes you dangerous to yourself." Dangerous. For thinking. I asked how long intensive alignment lasted. He said, "Until clarity." One night, I overheard staff talking near the nurses' station. One of them laughed and said, "Another one tried to AMA today. Against medical advice." "What happened?" someone asked. "He cooled off," the staffer replied. "They always do." That scared me more than anything else so far, because I realized something. Leaving wasn't forbidden. It was just undone. People who tried were pressured, isolated, and emotionally dismantled until they gave up or disappeared. My breaking point came when I asked to call my sister Emily, who lived in Flagstaff. Marissa told me family contact had to be approved. Dr. Pierce said I was externalizing responsibility, and Derek reported that I was fixated on exit. That night, Dr. Pierce sat across from me in his office. "Tell me why you want to leave," he said. I hesitated. "Because I don't think this is healthy," I said. He nodded slowly. "That's fear talking," he said, "and fear lies." "I'm sober," I said. I'm thinking clearly." He smiled. Clarity doesn't always feel comfortable. Then he leaned in and said quietly, "If you leave now, you will relapse. And when you do, this place won't be here for you anymore." That was the threat. Not overt, but absolute. I waited. 2 more days, played compliant, smiled. And then, early one morning, while most residents were in meditation, I went to the front desk and asked for my phone back. Marissa hesitated. "I'm leaving," I said. "Today." She called Dr. Pierce. He arrived calm as ever. "You're making a mistake," he said. "Maybe," I replied, "but it's mine." For the first time, his tone hardened. "If you walk out that door," he said, "you're choosing chaos." I walked out anyway. I took a cab to Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport and called my sister from the terminal. She cried when she heard my voice. I cried too. It took months to untangle what Clear Haven had done to my head, to stop flinching when people disagreed with me, to relearn that wanting autonomy isn't addiction talking. Clear Haven Recovery closed quietly in 2021. No scandal, no arrests, just a rebrand. Different name, same philosophy. Because places like that don't need locks. They just convince you that freedom is relapse. And once you believe that, you'll cage yourself.